So Janet Yellen is visiting over in China. Why? I mean, haven't you gotten the message from China yet? They're buzzing our military at sea. They're threatening Taiwan. They're engaged in flooding our country with fentanyl. They're engaged in intellectual piracy, currency manipulation. They're bullying neighbors and allies and trade partners. They're funding Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, which is why we'll talk about that next. They're an enemy. And I would sit down, if I go to sit down with China, if I had to sit down with President Xi or his Secretary of State or whatever flunky he sent out the meeting, I said, what do we got to talk about? You've been openly hostile to America and its allies. You've been openly hostile to your neighbors. We got nothing to talk about. Either you pick up a gun or we are. We're coming to that point. That's the conversation that needs to be had. You need to put the line, you need to draw the line. You say, no, we're not going to allow you to invade Taiwan no matter what. We're not planning to evacuate Taiwan. We're not going to pull people out. We're going to protect Taiwan. We're tired of you telling us you're one China. Those days are over. That was Mao. We made that agreement with Mao. Sadly, with Nixon. It's changed the world. And as the world changes, America's foreign policy. And now that is an independent, free nation. Those people have been on that island, and these are now grandchildren, literally, of the people that fled China, that were rebelled against Mao. They are not the same people. They have built cities. They have integrated and syncretized with the local Formosan people. They are one people. Sorry, your days are over of one China. Your China is China mainland. That's an independent nation, Taiwan, and we will protect it just as we protected Ukraine. I hope better than we did with Ukraine. That's the kind of conversation that he's bad. That's not the conversation Janet Yellen had, at least not as she reports it. We came meet some progress on ways on things we see eye to eye on. What do we see eye to eye on? The basic premise of your existence in China is communism. There is nothing that we have in common. We have more in common with Russia than we do with China. Culturally, intellectually, religiously. Well, what do we got to talk about? You're an enemy of the United States. You've said so. You said so publicly. Many of your generals and are making videos blowing up U.S. carriers. We don't make videos. We actually do it. And you set foot across that strait, and you try to make a move on Taiwan, we'll come down on you like the sword of God. That's what needs to be said. That's the way it needs to be told to them. But we don't have a strong president. We got Janet Yellen. And she was complaining about, I was the only woman in the room. Yeah. He sends another one of these midget Quasimodo government bureaucrats. That's what Janet Yellen said. Do you ever notice that all of our government bureaucrats, Fauci, the Department of Justice, Merrick Garland, they're all like 5'1". Like, that's not who you send there. You send people like Mitt Romney, guy's 6'2", whatever he is, and you have him go over and to lay down the law. Ronald Reagan, how tall was Ronald Reagan? He was tall. He was like 6'4", right? He'd come out and say, "You're not fucking around with the United States anymore. You're an evil empire." That's what needs to be told to China. China's an evil empire. And you either toe the line and you come in line with the rest of the world, and you deal with us in a responsible way, the way the rest of the world deals with each other, with fair trade, open markets, intellectual integrity, intellectual property integrity. You do the way the rest of the world operates, and then we'll talk to you. Not until then. We're not going to have a conversation until then. Not Janet Yellen. We met eye to eye on things, and we're making progress, but there are still things that we don't meet. Yeah, like what? Like slave labor? Like building electric cars with labor? I showed a picture. I was on somebody's thread. Popped up in mine. It's like suggested for you, which is always a red flag. I don't know why they keep suggesting these left-wing people to be friends with, but they do. I pull it up, and guy's talking about his new electric Cadillac. And I posted a picture of a child like this with the bones in his fingers exposed because he's been digging the cobalt with his hands. He's a slave. And he's been digging cobalt in Africa. He's been digging coal with slave. And this is Amnesty International. So I know it's legitimate. I said, you're doing that to the child. Oh, it's a Cadillac. It's made in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Well, where do you think the cobalt for the battery comes from, you moron? He blocked me, right? Good. I'm glad he blocked me. I don't want him to listen to the show. I don't want him to have anything to do with me. He says, well, this is a Cadillac. I said, I have a Cadillac too, but I don't know if it's not electric. What are we doing over there? We're kissing up to them. And this is why even Donald Trump tried to get along with the Chinese. And everyone got upset that Donald Trump he's causing another trade war. Good! I hope he does. Our pork farmers are suffering, and so we got to subsidize them. Well, you know what? Your pork farmer is making money selling to the Chinese. We have free trade. Okay, let's lower our tariffs if you do. Well, if you don't, we're going to raise our tariffs. And I'm sorry, it's going to hurt some Americans, but freedom is a painful thing sometimes. Doing the right thing doesn't come easy. It didn't come easy at Normandy. So a few pig farmers, if they get upset that they can't sell their products anymore, I'm sorry, but that's the price you pay. Just like it was in Normandy. If you're upset about that, I would suggest you take a look at how many people suffered on Normandy, on D-Day, on June 6th. Those people suffered. Slaughtered like animals on the beach. Because we did the right thing. We stood up to the Nazi Empire. Well, how would you think if you're selling, would you sell pork to the Nazis? Really, it's the same thing. You want to do business with the Nazis? You're doing business with China. We talk about, we can't talk about Nazis. You know, you can't post a swastika to Facebook. You can't post you post even a picture of Hitler. Even if you say in the context, Hitler's a terrible guy, you post this picture, you get banned. Well, how come we don't do that with Stalin? How come we don't do that with President Z? He's just as bad. How many millions is he killing? How many people have he lined up in a ditch? Put a gun in their hand. So I don't know why we're wasting time. And you send Janet Yellen, who's not going to get any respect from the Chinese. Look, you talk about patriarchy, and you talk about America, and I go, it's a joke. Why don't you take a look at what's going on in China? You want to talk about patriarchy. You talk about, China, I'm the only woman in the room. So what? You're there to negotiate a deal. Stand up for yourself. Maybe if you're that upset about it, why don't you just say, you know what? I'm the only woman in the room. Until you bring me some women diplomats that I can talk to, I'm not going to talk to you because you don't have any respect for women, that they aren't present here in the room. Why don't you have some stones? It's like, Hillary Clinton going over and visiting the Mideast, right? She's going over there to talk to him about human rights. This happened while she was Secretary of State. She's going over to the Saudis to talk about human rights. So a waste of time that is, right? They're an Islamic Republic. They're not going to. But she did it. Okay. She wears a head wrap, a hijab. She's not Muslim. Why are you wearing that? You should be saying, no, I'm not going to wear a hijab because we here in America don't believe in the suppression of women's rights and women to go scarfless if they so choose. That's what you do. You stand up for American principles. When they make laws in England, in Germany, that arrest people for freedom of speech, you need to make a statement. As President of the United States. They arrested a bunch of people holding up a sign. Prince Charles sucks, that kind of thing. And they arrested them and hauled them off. I would have immediately come out as President of the United States. I think it's shameful that the country that we came from is arresting people for free. They're still the same country they were in 1776. Fuck them. That's what you do. That's what Reagan did. Immediately. There were 8 people that the Chinese singled out. Hong Kong protesters, protesting freedom of speech, 8 people. Did our administration say anything? Because the Chinese said these people are wanted, and any country who harbors them needs to turn them over. If I was President of the United States, I'd have a press conference the next day. I say, you know what? Any of those 8 people who get to the United States, we'll give you shelter. We're not going to honor any extradition for freedom of speech. Absolutely not. They have got a home here. America is the nation of free speech. And as such, if they're going to speak freely, we're going to protect them. Why Why are we trying to arrest Edward Snowden? Why are we trying to arrest Julian Assange? They should be given asylum here. Edward Snowden was a whistleblower. We have laws to protect whistleblowers. Why is he in hiding in, of all places, Russia? Of all places, right? We no longer stand up for ourselves. We are a nation of simps because we have had generation after generation of bad education, SEL training, and wokeness. Nobody wants to stand up. America first. I loved it when Donald Trump was, I'm not a huge Trump fan, but I got to tell you, he's done some things that have been great. When he was in a meeting with the European leaders, and there was that scene of him taking his hand and pushing others, I go, America first. I'm the leader of the free world. I should be in front of that crowd. I loved it. Put those people in Europe on notice. You got to pay your bills. You're not contributing money to NATO? You better, because we're going to pull out if you don't pay. You've got to develop a military. Germany, France, England, all had militaries that were able to defend themselves in 1940. Why aren't they doing it now? Because America's doing it for them. We're simps. We take it. And Janet Yellen's just another simp. Oh, we're trying to get along with China. Fuck them. They're enslaving people, murdering people. They got people by the millions in labor camps. And you want to make nice with them? Would FDR gone to Hitler in 1940 when he was invading France and say, we want to make a deal? No! Winston Churchill. Fight him on the shores. Never give up. Never give up. That's what I want from a president. You're not going to get it with people like Yellen. You're not going to get it with people like Merrick Garland. You're just not. You're not going to get it with a Dr. Fauci who stands up and says, no, this is not right. We're not going to donate money to these bioweapons in China. We shouldn't be funding anything in China. Because they're simps. Speaking of Russia and Putin and China, let's talk about nukes in Ukraine. We'll be right back.